What is up, YouTube? I'm Devon DaVinci, leader of the Renaissance crew, and you're watching DaVinci Reacts. Today I'm going to be getting into a video about Oversimplified again. This is part 2 of his video about World War I. So if you guys want to go and check out his channel, all you have to do is click on a link in the description box, which will take you to the original video, where you can watch it without me interrupting and all that other stuff. Or you can go to the end of this video, the last 30 seconds or so. There'll be a link, or not a link, but an icon that you can click on in the video that'll take you directly to their main channel, where you can go and subscribe, watch all their videos, things like that. So be sure to do that if you want to check out more of these videos. Let's go ahead and get back into this. Everybody knows how World War I started. I asked some questions about the trenches, and someone in the comment section said that they do actually still have the trenches in Belgium, I believe, and you can actually tour them, and that sounds interesting. Now, I don't really have the resources to be going across the world and sightseeing. I hope one day that I will get to that point, but yeah, it's nice to know that it's still there. But anyway, let's go ahead and check this out and, you know, wrap up this story about World War I, and hopefully there's no sequel.
With both sides stuck in a hard stalemate, they knew this war wasn't going to be about taking territory, but about simply wearing each other down. The Allies had
war of
plenty
attrition
of land to expend from its overseas dominions, and the British also started a naval blockade, so Germany couldn't import stuff, like food. Neither side really wanted a long, grueling war, though, so they both thought of ways to break the deadlock on the Western Front. Idea number 1, new frontiers. When the war first broke out, Australia was quick to take German New Guinea. The Allies also quickly jumped on Germany's colonies in Africa, and particularly in German East Africa, locals were enlisted as soldiers and carriers by both sides, leading to a tragic loss of life for the native Africans. Some new combatants entered the war as well. The Allies' new friends were Italy and Japan. Japan was busy building itself an empire, so it was more than happy to take away German islands and colonies in East Asia. Italy actually had an alliance with Germany and Austria-Hungary before the war, but after some tense relations, and then the Allies promising to give them some of Austria-Hungary's stuff, they switched sides. Italy opened up a front in the mountains here, but like everyone else, they were stuck in stalemate for most of the war. The Central Powers' new friend was a struggling empire in the Middle East. The Ottomans were divided on whether to actually join the war or not, since they had been exhausted by the recent Balkan Wars. Some of the politicians who did want to join went off on their own and fired some shells at Russia, and then came back and said, "Whoops, looks like we're at war now." The Ottoman entry into the war—
that's some shit America would do.
To the British, since the Middle East was full of oil, and Britain wanted all of that oil. First, the Ottomans tried to attack Russia in the Caucasus Mountains, but they weren't prepared for the cold, and many of them froze to death. Then they crossed miles of desert to take the Suez Canal from the British.
That Russian cold is no joke.
Too. Then the Allies tried to take the Dardanelles at Gallipoli in a long and hard trench warfare campaign, but that also failed. The Ottomans blamed their initial losses on the ethnic Armenians living within Ottoman territory.
The Armenian genocide.
Result of the Armenian genocide led to the deaths of 1.5 million people. Then the Germans sent spies into Afghanistan to try to convince the Arab tribes there to rise up in jihad against the British and attack India. But that plan failed.
Just real quick. Yeah, that was something else that wasn't really mentioned on that video I reacted to. I believe it was the 25 worst things humans have ever done to each other. I don't think they actually mentioned the Armenian genocide, which was another tragic event. Let's go ahead and continue.
Because the spies got bored, brewed their own alcohol, and got drunk, which is a bad thing to do in Afghanistan. All these new frontiers hadn't done much to change the war. Aware that the Allies had more men and supplies than them, the Germans knew they had to do something to break the stalemate. Before the war, there was a big conference that set out the rules of modern warfare. No chemical weapons, no killing civilians. Basically, don't be jerks. The Germans held a meeting and decided to be jerks. Zeppelin air raids commenced over British cities. They also started attacking the Allied trenches with chlorine gas, and they used submarines to sink civilian ships. One such civilian ship was the Lusitania, which had 159 Americans on board when it was sunk, further swaying U.S. opinion against
fucked
the
up.
Germans.
Somebody's about to get liberated.
Unfair to the Germans, the Allies also engaged in chemical warfare soon after.
About to bring some democracy
and they had been
over there.
Submarine weapons on their civilian ships, which let the Germans justify their attacks. Meanwhile, Austria-Hungary still hadn't dealt with Serbia, so the Central Powers enlisted some help. Bulgaria wished it was bigger and was still bitter about losing the Second Balkan War. The Central Powers promised to make all of Bulgaria's wildest dreams come true if they helped, so they signed on, and together they knocked out Serbia. The Serbian troops retreated through Albania, which was neutral but had some ties to Austria-Hungary. So Austria-Hungary entered Albania in a friendly invasion to chase down the Serbians.
How the fuck is a friendly invasion?
It's 1916.
They had like a parade and then just kept taking shit over? Like, what's a friendly invasion?
Germany added one more to the list. Portugal had been getting a bit chummy with the Allies behind the scenes, and Germany didn't like that one bit. Around the same time, the only sea battle of the war happened. Both sides had a new powerful class of battleships called dreadnoughts, but they were so expensive to build that neither side wanted to risk losing them in a battle. So they kept them in port, except for one time when they had a big fight and a bunch of them got damaged, so they didn't try that again. The UK started conscripting men to the army, so they had plenty of reserves, which is just as well because the Western Front was about to get brutal. The longest and one of the bloodiest battles of the war started when the Germans launched an attack around the French city of Verdun. The French defended it desperately, leading to hundreds of thousands of casualties. Under pressure, the French called on its allies to do something to draw the Germans' attention away, so the British started their own long and brutal fight, the Battle of the Somme, with 60,000 British casualties on just the first day. It was also here that the British first used one crazy brand new piece of sci-fi technology. The Russians had been getting pushed back further and further into their own territory, but in response to the French call for help, they began a huge offensive, and did really well until they ran out of supplies and got stuck. Seeing how well the Russians had been doing, Romania decided now would be a great time to jump in and win the war, and then they got pounded. The Greeks were fighting amongst themselves about whether to join the war or not. The king liked the Central Powers, while the Prime Minister wanted to join the Allies. After a brief national schism, during which the country split into two, the king finally abdicated and the country reunited. With Allied help, they began a new offensive. In the Middle East, Russia was pushing into Ottoman territory from the north. The British had also made a landing in Mesopotamia to protect Persia's oil fields, and they had also sent a small army up the Tigris River to try to take Baghdad, but the army got sieged in the town of Kut along the way, and eventually surrendered. A new offensive was launched from the south with all-out desert warfare. The offensive was aided by one famous British officer, better known as Lawrence of Arabia, who helped lead the Arab tribes in a revolt that wreaked havoc on the Ottoman supply lines. By the time 1917 rolled around, everyone was exhausted. There were mutinies in the French army, the German populace was starving, and the war had drained all of Russia's supplies. There was no clear winner, and it was still anyone's war. The only question now was, who was going to break first? And the answer was Russia. Tired of not eating and mad that a crazy magic homeless guy was calling some of the shots, there was an uprising in Petrograd complete with riots and strikes. The riots turned into a full...
First of all, Rasputin isn't just a magic guy. He's a goddamn god. Anybody that don't know anything about the way this man survived. The way he survived to death. That's what happened. He survived to death. Go ahead and look up the story of Rasputin. I'm sure a lot of people watching this already know the story, but this is for those that might not really know a lot about him. Be sure to check that out. It's an interesting story.
Complete with riots and strikes. The riots turned into a full-scale revolution, and a new government overthrew the Tsar. Then a few months later, the Bolsheviks overthrew the new government, and they pulled Russia out of the war.
Communism!
This was great news for Germany, who now only had to focus on the Western Front. But there was still one problem. The pesky United States of America was looking increasingly like it was going to join the war. America had been selling supplies to the Allies throughout the war, and was getting super rich off the back of it, meaning it was in fantastic shape and was dangerous to the Germans. So Germany sent a telegram to Mexico saying, wouldn't it be crazy cool if you guys attacked America?
I forgot what the name of that letter was, but I remember reading about it.
And that was the final straw. American troops began...
That's it. Time to get liberated.
This was terrible news for Germany, and they knew their
Here comes freedom, goddammit.
Force France and the UK to surrender before the fresh American troops arrived. It was now or never, so they started one final attack. They converged their troops and hit hard at the Somme and pushed the Allies back. They hit a second time further north, then again and again. With each hit, the Germans were spending more and more resources.
If they did all that on one location, maybe they could have blitzkrieged.
By the fifth punch, the Allies held the line and even pushed back. With American troops now arriving in larger numbers, the Allies launched a counterattack, and that was it. The Central Powers were being pushed back on all fronts. Bulgaria collapsed first, followed by the Ottoman Empire, then Austria-Hungary, and finally on November 11, 1918, at 11 o'clock, Germany surrendered. At the peace treaty, Germany was forced to reduce its military, accept war guilt, and pay the bill for the war. After indescribable suffering and millions dead, the world learnt its lesson and never had such an awful war again. For about 20 years.
Yeah, if the Treaty of Versailles were done in a more modest, relaxed way, there probably wouldn't have been a World War II. the fact that they put all the blame on Germany and made Germany pay the entire bill for the whole war, something that they could not have done. And then when it comes to like Japan, the way that they pretty much just like forced them to well, from what I've heard, Japan was already having issues with China and stuff. They were already trying to expand and like become an empire. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to become an empire. So they were already like going into Japan, and they already had like the war with Russia and things like that. And so they already had weakened China in a way. And pretty much what the Treaty of Versailles did was like all the stuff that they did with China and the other areas, the actual empire nations like Great Britain and France and all them, they just like kind of came in and just took the shit that they came in and took advantage of a weakened China that Japan already had weakened. And Japan was like kind of left ass out because, okay, well, we weakened China and we wanted to take control of them. You said we couldn't do it, but now all of a sudden you're coming in and taking control of them. What the fuck is going on? So like it's a lot. Like that goes down to just about everything. Like every single event almost after World War II or during World War II were because of, I want to say, like two-faced politics. Like look at Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh was somebody that he wanted to have I believe he wanted to have a seat at the table. After World War II, he was looking for somebody to help him with it's been such a long time since I've read up about it, but I'm just going off the top of my head. So if I say anything wrong, be sure to correct me in the comment section. But I believe he wanted like a seat at the table as far as like to have some type of influence with the other nations and stuff, like to be able to sit at the same table as everybody else and be a part of everybody else. But pretty much like the Allied powers just ignored him. That they just like brushed him off, I guess. I'm not sure if it was because they didn't see him as somebody on their level, or maybe there could have been some racism involved too, because let's be real, in the 40s, the governments didn't really give too much of a damn about other nations that weren't European. And yeah, they just kind of like brushed him off. And that's the thing that led him towards communism, which eventually led to the Vietnam War. Same thing to be said about Afghanistan and Iraq and the Middle East right now. Like the like World War II, the Britain and other European empires kind of like split the area up. They split it up in a way that it didn't really work out for the people that lived there. Like there was a lot of rivalry, tribes and clans that were kind of like forced to share space, and that didn't really work out well. I said if everything was fair and they just let everybody who actually lived in those areas control who has what and this, that, and the other, I'm not gonna say it would have worked out perfect, because let's be real, greed would have gotten in the way and somebody would have, ended up going to war with somebody else because of some bullshit thing. But I don't think it would have been as many troubles as it is now if we would just like heard out what the people that weren't empires at the time had to say, like treated them seriously. Yeah, anyway, that's been this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. The next video I'll be looking at will be World War II, and well, really part 1. So be on the lookout for that video to be coming out soon. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and share. I'm going to go ahead and move on to something else. There is one more video I want to try to tackle today. But yeah, I am Devon DaVinci. You've just been a little bit more enlightened. So until that next video comes up, I'm going to give you the deuces, and I'll see you then. Deuces.